Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. Today, we're going to be talking about how to build a meditation plan that suits your lifestyle. And this is something many people struggle with. But I don't want to steal Kathleen's thunder. So, first, let's introduce co host Kathleen Beauvais. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We are so privileged to welcome Jeff Patterson to this show. Hello, Jeff. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Now, Jeff has been practicing the martial arts for the past 36 years, including Tai Chi, Qigong, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, etc. He is a firm believer in the meditative arts and their power to enhance your overall life experiences. And today he's here to yak with us about meditation and how it can impact your life. So let's just jump right in. Jeff, you're the founder of the Yielding Warrior, which is a different type of meditative art. Can you explain that?
Yielding is a concept that is in any meditative practice that you would do. It's also used in martial arts. The idea of yielding is something I've broken down in my most recent book, The Yielding Warrior, into three categories. We have physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding.
Mhm.
Physical yielding is the easiest one to understand, and it's the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. So I'm not butting heads with you and trying to power you. And this is obvious how this is beneficial in any kind of athletics because it's not uncommon to come up against another athlete who's bigger and stronger than you. And if you try to butt heads with them, they're going to win. So this skill is really valuable. Now, in order to be good at yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present.
Mhm.
While this is a lifetime to really master this skill, the great thing is by adapting a meditative practice into your life, you start to recognize these things and see things in a little bit more detailed level from day one. And this is where it starts to become very interesting because not only do you see these things inside yourself, but you also start seeing these things more clearly in other people.
Mhm.
Now, say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, and
Mhm.
I pick up on it right from that first sign of imbalance. It's a lot easier to adjust the conversation and keep us in a harmonious place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. And this is an example of what I call mental yielding. And then lastly, we have what I call emotional yielding. And this is similar to mental yielding, but it's with your own interpersonal conflicts. So you think
Mhm.
about oftentimes something will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But by adapting meditation into our life, we're able to kind of be more present, step back, analyze the scenario, and oftentimes make a more educated choice as to how we should respond to things because we're in a more balanced state. Now, I've been explaining this idea of yielding for many years. I've been running my academy for 30 years now. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, ah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I use yielding all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody uses some degree of yielding all the time, whether they
Mhm.
recognize that it's labeled that or not.
Right.
However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they have this kind of practice in their life.
Mm. Right, right. So I just listening to you talk, I think one of the areas where we fall down is in parenting. We don't give enough attention to yielding when we're dealing with our kids, right? And that's why we end up with
Sure.
confrontations all the time. If I think I have two very adult sons, and I think back some of the upsets we've had was if I'd understood more about yielding then, we would not have had those upsets, right? So, very
I
good point.
I have a question for you, Jeff, on the yielding. So when you're talking about yielding, and you gave the example that if you're talking to someone and you kind of get the sense that you're kind of ruffling feathers maybe, and you kind of trying to bring it back so that the discussion is more harmonious, you're not talking about yielding to the point that you're not being your authentic self and expressing your true self. We're not going that far, correct?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought that up because a common misinterpretation of yielding is that I'm giving up or I'm like doing something where I'm not, like you said, being who I really am. You know, you always need to be authentic and to be coming from who you are.
Mm.
But yielding is not giving up and giving way to somebody and just saying that, oh, that's okay. When it's not okay. Yielding is being strategic enough to understand the perspective and learn how to guide it to a place where there's the least amount of resistance.
Mhm.
One, we're being more considerate because we're listening and we're being more in tune, which is something, we could all do more of, but
Mhm.
it allows us to be strategic. And this is great for our personal relationships, for business, for sales, for negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can apply this idea of yielding in all of our interactions.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
If we focus on meditation for a moment, why do so many people struggle to clear their mind? And I have this problem myself that I've tried many times to meditate regularly with limited success because I cannot keep my mind clear for more than a few seconds. And I believe this is a very common problem. So how do you get around that one or get over that one?
So I'm glad you brought up that question because that is probably the most common question I've heard in my 30 years of teaching the meditative arts. And, people will come and they'll say, yeah, I tried meditation, but I couldn't quiet my mind. It just didn't work for me. And, somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea thinking that in order to do meditation, you have to be in this state of nirvana and this blissful place where nothing bothers you, and
Mm.
I've been traveling around the world for the last 36 years, studying with meditation teachers all over the planet. And I've been fortunate to train with some really amazing practitioners. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We're all human. We all get distracted. Nobody is in this perfect place where no thoughts come into their mind. And so when you can change that perspective and realize that you're not failing, that this is actually a good thing, you can start to really reap the benefits of the
Mhm.
practice. So say, for example, you're having a meditation session, whether you're doing a sitting practice or a movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga or whatever it is. And during that session, you get distracted 50 times. You recognize the distraction. You use your posture, your breath, your alignment to bring you back to center. And now you just got 50 repetitions of being off center and distracted and coming back to balance. And if you do that every day, every week, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability that no matter what throws you off your center, you have the tools and the awareness to find that balance again. And that's really powerful. And that's the idea of meditation is we learn how to use it to maintain that balance and that present state rather than, get so far distracted that we are too far down the road to really turn around or to get back to balance.
So,
Okay. Sorry, Kathleen, I want to pursue this one a little bit quickly,
mhm,
if I may.
mhm.
Is there a parallel between a deep state of meditation and the state of flow?
Very, very much. There's a lot of similarities. However, in a deep state of meditation, you can't perform at a high level in an athletic state.
Okay.
So a lot of times when an athlete reaches that place of flow, there's a lot of things clicking that are very
Sure.
similar to that meditative state, but not 100% the same.
Okay, I'm with you. And I'll just go on that I used to get it. I used to do a lot of marathon running, and I've experienced that absolute state of flow several times when running. But I've also been a horse rider for most of my life until the last few years, and I've experienced it on the back of a fast horse. And one of the, I don't know if you call this sort of meditation, but for instance, if I'm in a dental surgery and I know that I'm going to be uncomfortable, I get into the state where I'm on my horse more than running, and I just live that experience over again, and that helps me get through the discomfort and probable pain of the procedure. Is that sort of meditation, or is that not really it at all?
I think visualization is one of the things that we can use in our meditation practice when we
Hmm.
are creating a lifestyle around meditation. So
Okay.
I break up meditation into kind of five main categories. We have the athletic side of the practice that helps improve our performance, our body
Hmm.
awareness, our timing, and then we have the therapeutic side of the practice, which is good for maintaining our strength and flexibility and working through injuries. There's the medical side of the practice, which all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory. And then we have the philosophical side of the practice, and then also the meditative or spiritual side of the practice. And, you might follow any one or two of those paths as you start to build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts.
Okay. Okay. No, interesting. Okay. No, back to you, Kathleen.
So we're often told that meditation requires a lot of practice, but are there any shortcuts to becoming more mindful?
There definitely is shortcuts, and there's a lot of things that, I've seen through the years. I've had students come in here that try to self-teach themselves, and it's so easy to get distracted out there
Mhm.
with you go onto YouTube and there's a billion videos of follow this and follow that, and if if you don't have a good guide, it can waste a lot of time. I've literally seen people come into the academy that have been self-taught and they've been studying for 10, 15, even 20 years. And oftentimes they'll come in and get discouraged because they'll see somebody that's only been here for 12 months that's deeper into their practice. And, we're only on this planet for a short amount of time. Your time is valuable. Having a guide is essentially really going to help you get a lot further down the road in a shorter amount of time. The other thing that's really important for a new practitioner, even somebody who's experienced some level of a meditation practice, is you have to have a strong why that drives you and energizes you to do the practice. Because I don't care who you are, maybe it's tomorrow, next week, next month, your alarm's going to go off in the morning and it's time to get up to practice, and you're going to say, I'll hit the snooze button, I'll do it tomorrow.
Mm.
And meditation's meant to be a way of life and something that we integrate into every day, and so it becomes who we are, where we really reap the benefits. If you're studying meditation because you want to overcome anxiety and panic attacks, but you only practice when you have a panic attack,
Mhm.
it's not going to work. You got to lay the foundation. And so having that strong why gives you the motivation and the energy to make that consistency, which is so valuable, because through that consistency, we develop that discipline and integrity and perseverance that feeds over not just in our practice, but in every other area of our life. And so then it really starts to become kind of how we live, which is what it's meant to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That discipline is so important, and I've found from wanting to run marathons, if you don't put that regular,
Mhm.
consistent effort in, you're not going to get through a marathon, right? And that there's so many spin-offs in the rest of your life when you get that discipline.
I'm actually curious
And
about
why do you
something, Jeff.
recommend?
Oh, sorry, Peter. I just wanted to, I was just actually
No, carry
curious.
on.
I've done ayahuasca. I don't know if you're familiar with ayahuasca. I've
Yes.
gone to the jungle of Peru and have done it there. Have you, what are your thoughts about that? Because it does alter your state of mind. And I don't know if you have any.
Sure. So, I'm kind of in the middle on this one, in
Mhm.
that I think that doing something like that less than a handful of times is maybe beneficial in that it helps you see things that maybe you might have not seen or might have taken longer to make these realizations.
Mhm.
However, the problem is that some people realize this state of awareness that they gained from the first time, and they're like, I do it again, I do it again. And then now it starts to become something that they use to try to escape to that place
Mhm.
where the meditation in that place that you want to get to in your awareness should not come from a substance. It should come from your ability to have the power to get there on your own.
Right.
Mhm.
Good point.
Now, Kathleen, I've warned you about mind-altering drugs before,
No,
so
no, no, Peter. It's not, Peter. They see it as medicine. They really do. It's actually offensive when you go and talk to them about drugs because they honestly, they see it as a medicine. And a lot
I'm
of
sure.
people have gone there and used it as a medicine. I'm just going to say
Mhm.
that.
That's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. So, Jeff, you recommend Tai Chi and Qigong as part of a meditative practice. What's the reasons for that? What are the reasons for that?
Well, in any meditation practice, you get different benefits from doing different things. And the movement practices are great for keeping the body healthy and strong and flexible and mobile. So if we want to stay healthier into our later years and watch our grandkids grow up, or, if we want to just improve our body awareness, because part of any meditation practice is improving our awareness. And it's not just our mental awareness, but it's also our energetic and physical awareness within the body.
Hmm.
And having a combination of some movement practices, some sitting, some standing meditation, some breath work, some philosophical practices, all of these things I think are very helpful when creating an evolving life practice around the meditative arts. And the other thing that's really helpful with a movement practice is a lot of times with beginners, it's difficult for them to sit still for 20 minutes or a half an hour. And so it's a many times it's a good introduction to new people to maybe start them with a movement practice to learn how to get in that mental space.
Okay,
Right,
right.
right.
Is there an element of ritual to it as well that helps you get into that mental state?
For sure. And in any meditation practice, as you're building in creating one in your life, you should have ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices. And the ritual practices are when we set time aside every day and we do this for 20 minutes, an hour, or whatever that is for you. Active practices are things that you can do when you're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. And they could be as simple as counting out 10 breaths or maybe doing some spinal rotations or a simple movement practice. And it's a way to just keep in that awareness all day,
Mhm.
every day, because it's kind of silly to think that I can meditate and be at peace for a half an hour in the morning, but then the whole rest of the day you're stressed out and distracted. And so we want to learn how to integrate this mindset and this physical, mental, and emotional awareness in everything we do. And then lastly, we have the philosophical practices that can be integrated into our active and our ritual practices. And with those three pillars, we can really create a pretty amazing practice.
Mhm.
Mm. So, Jeff, what should people be able to experience during a meditative state? We talk about meditation and how it's supposed to be calming, but what is it? Oftentimes, people might think, well, I was just thinking about something and my mind kind of wandered. And is that meditation? What am I supposed to experience during this particular state?
So there's so many different meditative practices that we can use them to get different energies to help us get different outcomes.
Mhm.
And, I have what I call the 5 regulations. And with these 5 regulations, they allow somebody basically to understand the fundamental principles in meditation so they can kind of start learning how to write their own prescription as far as like what they need to do to maintain that balance and stability throughout the day. And these regulations are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what those are.
Okay.
So, regulating the body, this is the easiest one to do, and it's where we usually start at a surface level. And basically, an example would be, think about a time maybe you're sitting in front of your computer, you've been there 3 or 4 hours, and you're feeling lethargic. Maybe your shoulders are getting stiff, your neck's getting sore, and you're just feeling depleted. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and your energy feels great. Well, these two different energetic states we're in control of 100% of the time just by how we regulate our skeleton and our muscular tension and how we move in the body. Now, at a little deeper level, regulating the body also consists of how we're keeping up our strength and our flexibility and our diet and our sleep and all of these other things that affect our physical state. Then we have regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a very deep topic and something that you will study for the rest of your life if you do a meditation practice. Oftentimes they refer to Qigong as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies. We can kind of broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods.
Mm.
The yin methods, an example of that would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so, if we want to reach that more yin state of energy in our meditation practice, we can do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and shorter exhales. And this is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety and panic attacks, boosting our creativity. There's a lot of benefits that would come from this yin side of the practice. Then we have the yang side of the practice, which is more aggressive. It's on the exhale. You think about if you ever had to push your car or you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to exhale, put tension in the breath, make it audible, and this helps generate power and energy. Now, when we understand how to use the breath as a strategy like this, and in Chinese philosophy, they call this balancing the kan and li, or the water and fire. Now we have the tools to adjust our physical, mental, and emotional outcomes. Everybody goes through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like a roller coaster, others maybe a little more balanced. But when you start recognizing these imbalances and say you're starting to get excited, we could use the yin breath to help bring you back down. When you feel yourself starting to get depleted, we can use the yang breath to bring you back up. The third regulation is regulating the mind. And this we already kind of touched on a little bit with distractions and learning how to bring ourselves back to center. And it's something that you'll work on for your entire life with the meditation practice, but it's very having the awareness and the sensitivity to notice these mental imbalances is extremely powerful. There's a story that I love about these two older monks who are walking down this dirt road after a big rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle. And on the other side of the puddle's this beautiful little girl standing there in a white dress, and she's crying. And the older monk, he yells across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back and takes her to the other side and sets her down, and she's off on her way. Him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down at him and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do we get caught up walking 2 miles down the muddy road before we finally let something go? And so understanding to recognize these imbalances and have the tools to bring ourselves back to center is extremely valuable. The fourth regulation is regulating the energy. And this is something that we could literally talk for hours about, but briefly, the basic idea of it is once we've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, now we have the tools to circulate the energy in the body, lead it inward, extend it outward, and to get different outcomes with this. And then lastly, we have regulating the spirit, which is a very deep topic and something that's very profound. A lot of meditation practitioners and monks will spend their entire life working towards that ultimate stage of enlightenment. But when you understand these basic 5 principles and these underlying benefits of the practice, you can see that it can affect anything we do in life. And now, by this basic understanding, we have the tools to kind of adjust our practice to get different outcomes that can help us find more balance in the things that we're doing.
Wow,
Oh.
that's quite amazing. That is. Wow.
Mhm.
And that leads into something that has intrigued me for most of my getting on to quite a long life. If one can become good at the meditative practice, would this help one overcome adversity? I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from you.
You know, the great thing about meditation is that it allows you to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're distracted and we're thinking about the past or we're anticipating what's going on in the future, that's where all stress comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we can waken up and pay attention to the present moment, we have the power to guide our physiology and our thoughts and our mind, our emotions to be expressed in the positive light that most of us want. And so I think that it's very valuable in that aspect.
Mm.
Okay.
Oh. S- So, although you've answered it, I was going to ask you about the benefits that would what benefits people would see if they practice meditation on a regular basis, but I think you've answered that very well. But my other question is does it make you become more spiritual?
I think it can, and especially if that's a goal of yours and something you want to do, you can adapt practices to make you more spiritual. And then it also kind of depends on what your definition of spirituality is, because some people look at that as I've got to follow this disciplined path that says I need to believe in this and follow that way? Or does it mean, you're more in tune and more connected to nature, And so there's a lot of a kind of leeway there, I guess, as to far
Mhm.
as how you interpret that.
Sure, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm quite a strong follower of Stoic philosophy, and I do a little bit of daily reading every day from Marcus Aurelius and other Stoics, and I've found this ability to detach from things one cannot control. It has been a huge benefit in some really bad parts of my life. And I would like to believe that if one can do that, one can also enhance that by becoming good at meditation. Am I on the right track there, or are the two totally different?
Right. No, I think that there's a lot of close connections there for sure.
Okay. So one question we like to ask all our expert guests, and just listening to you, you're way up amongst that range of experts. I'm really intrigued by what you've been telling us, and that is there's a lot of negativity in the world. That doesn't apply to me or Kathleen. We see opportunities, and we're not dwelling on the doom and gloom. But a lot of people are. So would you say that if they can adopt a meditative practice that would help them have a better, more positive outlook on life and therefore improve their life?
For sure. I've had so many students come in here who are depressed and negative and working through anxiety and seeing meditation turn their lives around You know, in today's fast-paced society, we're all so distracted. We're tethered to our cell phones. We've got, all of these things going on. And oftentimes it forces us to almost as if we're wearing a mask or hiding behind barriers because we can't really show people who we are and how we feel. We don't want to say the wrong things or whatever it is. And we get so caught up in living this way that oftentimes we go to look at ourselves in the mirror and we're still wearing that mask. And the meditative arts is one of those things that helps us take these barriers away and take these masks off and really stay connected to who we are, which is, I think a beautiful part of the practice and something that we could all use more of.
For sure. Sure. No, thank you for that, Jeff.
My goodness, yeah, I think we can go on and speak to you for a few more hours. My goodness, Jeff, I hope to have you back on the show at some point in the future if you're willing. But first, tell us how people can contact you and perhaps tell us about your books and audio courses.
So they can reach me through my website, theyieldingwarrior.com. If you'd like to get a free copy of my most recent book, you could go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book. You just pay for shipping and handling, and we'll send you out a book. Also, on that same website, we have a program that teaches people how to build a personalized, evolving practice using different meditative arts. And then I also have a teacher training program up there for anybody out there who's maybe a life coach or they own a yoga studio or a martial arts studio and they want to learn how to integrate a meditation practice into what they're already doing to add another pillar to their business.
Excellent.
Wow.
That's just triggered a question for me, Kathleen, if I may ask Jeff. Jeff, if you collectively, the powers that be, but guided by people like yourself, could introduce teaching meditative practice to school children, high school children particularly, would that not solve a lot of the problems that we're seeing in young people?
I think that's a great idea, and I wish that we could make that happen. And there's been studies that people have done in the past where they've integrated just 5 minutes of morning meditation to kids in different areas around the country. And in every study that they've done, they've seen the grade point average as a whole for the group of the kids that are doing that drastically increase the overall attitude, less problems, less trouble. And, it's something simple that we could do to help our society, and this awareness that we could give our kids by integrating something simple like this into their day would just, I think, pan out in,
Wow.
in many ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And to start off like as soon as they are in the school system, just right away and
Yeah.
work right through it. Oh my goodness,
Wow, that
what a
would be good.
difference that would make. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, thank you so much, Jeff, for being on the show today. As I said, I really hope that we can get you back on the show to talk some more about this. This is a wonderful topic, hasn't it been, Peter? Just
Oh, absolutely. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed this, Jeff. Thank you.
thank you. And thank you all once again for tuning into our show. We so appreciated having you. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, we invite you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form, and we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.